$100,000. That's not 4 years of college, that's one. One single year of tuition, room, board, and fees at a growing list of private universities in America, and the number is climbing faster than almost any other line item in a family's budget. Faster than rent, faster than groceries, faster than gas. Say that number out loud and it sounds like a typo. It isn't. It's the real published cost of attendance at dozens of schools right now. And if you run the 4-year total, you're not looking at a degree anymore, you're looking at a number that rivals a mortgage on a house. Except this one comes with no roof, no equity, and no asset you can ever sell. Here's the reframe this video is built on. College, at the top end, doesn't function like education anymore. It functions like a luxury purchase with a diploma attached, priced the way a luxury purchase is priced, which means the sticker number and the number most people actually pay are two completely different things. And once you separate those two numbers, the whole story changes. Let's start with what's actually inside that $100,000, because it's not one fee, it's a stack of them. Tuition alone at the priciest private schools now sits somewhere between $60,000 and $65,000 a year. Add mandatory fees, technology fees, activity fees, health center fees, and you're adding another $2,000 to $4,000. Then comes room and board, and this is the part people underestimate. $18,000 to $20,000 a year just to sleep in a dorm and eat in a dining hall. Stack tuition, fees, and room and board together, and you're already past $85,000 before anyone buys a single textbook or plane ticket home for Thanksgiving. Now multiply that by 4 years, and here's where it gets uncomfortable fast. 4 years at $100,000 a year is $400,000, and that's before you factor in the part almost nobody budgets for, which is that these schools raise their prices every single year, typically 3 to 5%, meaning the freshman year price is never the price you're actually paying by senior year. Run that compounding forward, and a $100,000 school can easily average out to $110,000 or $115,000 a year by the time a student walks across the stage. Compare that $400,000 total to the median price of a home in most of the country, and the college degree wins, uncomfortably. A lot of families are quietly financing something bigger than their house, except the house appreciates and the degree does not. It just exists on a piece of paper, doing whatever work the job market decides to let it do. But here's where the number needs a serious asterisk, because almost nobody pays that sticker price. This is the part the brochure conveniently leaves off the cover. Elite private schools with $100,000 price tags are also, ironically, the schools with the deepest financial aid budgets, and they use those budgets aggressively because sticker price is partly a marketing number, a number designed to make the discount feel enormous. A family earning under $75,000 a year at many of these schools might pay close to nothing. A family earning a comfortable but non-wealthy income, somewhere around $150,000, might see the true cost cut in half through grants and need-based aid, landing closer to $50,000 a year instead of $100,000. So the honest number isn't everyone pays $100,000. It's the school prices itself at $100,000 and then negotiates down for almost everybody except the families wealthy enough that the discount doesn't matter, which means the real victims of the sticker price aren't the poorest families or the richest families. They're the ones stuck in the middle, earning too much for generous aid and too little to write the check without flinching. Now let's put this next to the other path, because this is where the comparison gets genuinely strange. A public in-state university, the kind most American students actually attend, runs somewhere around $24,000 to $28,000 a year for tuition, fees, room, and board combined. 4 years there lands around $100,000 total. Read that again. The entire 4-year public option costs roughly what one single year costs at the top private schools. Same degree category, same diploma-shaped outcome in the eyes of most employers, 1/4 of the sticker price. Out-of-state public tuition sits in between, often $40,000 to $50,000 a year once you include room and board, which is why so many families quietly steer their kids toward in-state schools the moment the financial aid letters come back thinner than hoped. Let's zoom into room and board for a second, because it's a bigger piece of this puzzle than people assume, and it behaves almost nothing like tuition. Room and board isn't really an education cost, it's a housing and food cost wearing a college sweatshirt. $18,000 to $20,000 a year for a dorm room and a meal plan works out to somewhere around $1,500 to $1,700 a month, which, in a lot of the country, is more than the rent on a decent one-bedroom apartment. Students are essentially paying premium market rent to live in a room the size of a walk-in closet, split with a stranger, because the school has built its entire dining and housing operation as a captive, mandatory revenue stream. First-year and often second-year students can't opt out of the meal plan even if they'd eat for a third of the price cooking their own food. It's baked into the bill whether they use it or not. Now here's the piece almost no one puts into the spreadsheet at all: opportunity cost. 4 years in a dorm isn't just 4 years of spending, it's 4 years of not earning. Take an 18-year-old who could be working full-time instead, even at a modest $20 an hour, 40 hours a week. That's roughly $41,600 a year in foregone income, and over 4 years, that's another $166,000 that never entered this person's bank account, on top of whatever tuition actually cost. Add that opportunity cost to a $100,000 a year private school bill, and the true 4-year price of that decision, cash spent plus income not earned, can quietly cross $500,000. Nobody puts that number on the acceptance letter, but it's real, and it's the same reason economists treat college less like a purchase and more like a multi-year investment with a very specific, calculable return. And that word, return, is really the whole conversation, because a degree isn't a flat-priced product like a car. It's an investment whose payoff depends entirely on what you study, and this is where the "is it worth it" debate actually gets interesting instead of emotional. Take engineering, computer science, or nursing graduates from a mid-tier public university. Median starting salaries for those majors often land between $65,000 and $80,000 a year, and by mid-career, many of those graduates are earning well over $100,000. Run the math on that path, and even a fully sticker-priced degree can pay for itself within 5 to 8 years of working, purely through the earnings gap versus a high school diploma. Now take a different major, say a humanities or general studies degree from that same $100,000 a year private school, where median starting salaries often sit closer to $40,000 to $45,000. That graduate is starting their career with the exact same $400,000 price tag as the engineering student, but a fraction of the early earning power to pay it down. Same institution, same $100,000 a year, wildly different math depending entirely on the 4 letters printed on the diploma. This is the part that should reframe how you think about expensive versus cheap school. It's not really about the school's name, it's about matching the price of the degree to the earning trajectory it unlocks. A $100,000 a year school in a high ROI field can be a better financial decision than a $25,000 a year school in a low ROI field once you follow the numbers all the way through instead of stopping at the sticker price. Let's talk about how families actually cover a gap like this, because this is where debt enters the picture, not as the headline, just as one tool families use to bridge a very large number. A family that qualifies for aid but still faces a gap of, say, $30,000 a year might use a combination of savings, current income, and federal student loans to close it. Federal loans for undergraduates are capped fairly low on their own, often around $5,000 to $7,000 a year for the student directly, which means the rest of that gap usually gets filled by parent loans or private loans, both of which carry meaningfully higher interest rates, sometimes 8 to 9%. Borrow $60,000 total across 4 years at 8% interest on a standard 10-year repayment, and the monthly payment lands somewhere around $728, with total interest paid over that decade adding roughly $28,000 on top of what was borrowed. That's not a scare number, it's just what interest does over time, the same way it would on a car or a home. The difference is this loan doesn't come with a house or a car attached to it when it's paid off. There's a quieter path through all of this that deserves its own moment, because it's the one a lot of financially sharp families are actually choosing. Community college for the first 2 years, then a transfer into the 4-year school for the final 2. 2 years at a community college often runs somewhere between $4,000 and $8,000 a year total, compared to $25,000 to $60,000 at a 4-year school. Transfer into that same $100,000 private school for the last 2 years, sometimes at a discounted transfer aid rate, and the diploma at the end says the same university name because most schools don't print "started at community college" on the degree. The total 4-year cost on that path can come in 50 to 70% lower than doing all 4 years at the expense of school, for what is, on paper, an identical outcome. Now, let's zoom out to the historical layer, because the $100,000 number isn't random, it's the endpoint of a 40-year trend line that most people have never actually seen graphed. In the early 1980s, a year at a private university, including room and board, averaged around $10,000. Adjusted for inflation, that $10,000 would be roughly $30,000 in today's money. Instead, that same category of school now averages closer to $80,000 to $100,000, meaning tuition has grown 2 to 3 times faster than general inflation over 4 decades. Wages, over that same stretch, did not grow 2 to 3 times faster than inflation. That gap, tuition sprinting ahead while paychecks jogged behind, is the actual engine behind every college is unaffordable headline you've ever scrolled past. It's not one bad year of pricing. It's 40 years of compounding at a rate the rest of the economy never matched. Here's the fair part though, because this video isn't here to tell you college is a trap. For a large chunk of families, this math simply doesn't apply the way it sounds. If you're going in-state to a public university, your real 4-year number is closer to $100,000 total, not per year, and that number pencils out extremely well against almost any career path. If you qualify for strong need-based aid, your real cost at even the priciest private schools can be a fraction of the sticker price, sometimes genuinely cheaper than the affordable public option once grants are applied. And if you're heading into a licensed high-demand field, nursing, engineering, accounting, computer science, the earnings on the other side often make even a heavier price tag resolve itself within the first decade of working. The $100,000 number is real, but it's the ceiling, not the floor. And a lot of the fear around it comes from people comparing their own family's situation to the scariest number in the room, instead of the one that actually applies to them. Let's follow the money one more layer, because there's a lifetime earnings piece to this that puts the whole conversation in perspective. On average, a bachelor's degree holder in America earns roughly $1 million more over a working lifetime than someone with only a high school diploma. Some studies put that premium even higher, depending on the field. Spread a $400,000 total cost across a 40-year career, and you're looking at an average cost of $10,000 a year against a premium that, averaged the same way, pays back $25,000 a year. On pure lifetime arithmetic, even the expensive version of this decision often still comes out ahead, just far more slowly and far more nervously than the cheaper version does. But averages hide the two very different experiences buried inside them. Someone who borrows heavily for a high ROI degree and graduates into a strong job market experiences this as a smart, if stressful, investment that pays for itself within a decade. Someone who borrows heavily for a lower ROI degree or graduates into a weak hiring year experiences the exact same starting price tag as a genuine financial setback that follows them for 15 or 20 years. Same sticker price, same university, completely different lived math, and the only variable that separated them was timing and major, not effort or intelligence. So where does that leave the number we opened with? $100,000 a year is real. It's published, it's rising, and at some schools it's already the entry price of admission before a single discount gets applied. But it's also, for most families, a starting number in a negotiation, not a final bill, shaped down by aid, offset by earnings potential, and, for a growing number of smart families, sidestepped almost entirely through community college transfers or in-state public schools that deliver the same diploma for a quarter of the price. The real skill here isn't finding the cheapest number on the page. It's matching the price you're paying to the payoff you're actually walking into, because that's the version of this math that decides whether 4 years in a dorm room turns into the best investment of someone's life, or just the most expensive 4 years they'll ever quietly pay off. If this kind of number-first breakdown is useful to you, subscribe so the next one lands in front of you, and tap like so this reaches a family standing in front of a financial aid letter trying to figure out if the number in front of them is actually as scary as it looks.